This is a video presentation on the biome, the tundra, by Aya, Hillary, Cassidy, and Claire. By definition, a tundra is any of the very large, flat areas of land in northern parts of Asia, North America, and Europe, where, because it is cold, trees do not grow and the earth below the surface is permanently frozen. It is noted for its frost-molded landscapes, extremely low temperatures, little precipitation, poor nutrients, and short growing seasons. Dead organic material function as a nutrient pool. The two major nutrients are nitrogen and phosphorus. Tundra is separated into two types, the Arctic tundra and the alpine tundra. The alpine tundra is a type of natural biome that does not contain trees because it is at a high altitude. The soil in an alpine tundra is able to drain itself, allowing for more plant and animal life. Growing season is approximately 180 days and lacks permafrost. Unlike the Arctic tundra, the soil in the alpine is well drained. The second tundra is the Arctic tundra. A layer of permanently frozen subsoil called permafrost exists, consisting of mostly gravel and finer material. When water saturates the upper surface, bogs and ponds may form, providing moisture for plants. There are no deep root systems in the vegetation of the Arctic tundra. However, there are still a wide variety of plants that are able to resist the cold climate. The Arctic tundra has low precipitation and dry winds. These conditions make the Arctic tundra a desert-like climate. The Arctic tundra has a growing season of 50 to 60 days and has permafrost. Winters are cold for both tundras with an average temperature of -30 degrees Celsius. The following images are images that we have selected to show what the tundra looks like. This is the food web we created for our tundra. The tundra is an inhospitable place, and many organisms, such as amphibians and reptiles, cannot be found in this unforgiving environment. Despite the challenges of living there, several groups of organisms thrive in the tundra, and these groups make up unique food chains and webs. Featured in our food web are the following organisms. The producers are the lichen, moss, grass, and Arctic wildflowers. The primary consumers are the caribou, lemming, Arctic hare, and pika. The secondary consumers are the shrimp, the musk ox, the ermine, and the snowy owl. The tertiary consumers are the cod, the ringed seal, the Arctic fox, and the snowy goose. And finally, at the top of the food web are the quaternary consumers, the Arctic wolf, the polar bear, the Arctic tern, and the liver tapeworm. The first interaction is mutualism. An example of this is the symbiotic relationship that occurs between fungus and green algae, or lichen. In this symbiotic relationship, both the algae and the fungus benefit from one another. When photosynthesis occurs, the algae makes sugar that feeds itself, but also the fungus. Furthermore, the fungus protects the algae. It retains water and holds onto nutrients and minerals. The next interaction is parasitism. An example of this would be liver tapeworm cyst. They live in the stomachs of Arctic wolves or caribou. This is an example of parasitism because only the tapeworm benefits from the relationship between the two. The tapeworms feed on the digested food of the host, causing the host to decrease in function and induce malnutrition. The tapeworm obtains energy at the expense of the host. Next is commensalism. An example of this in the tundra would be when caribou dig up snow to find lichen. A fox will follow the caribou, allowing it to eat small, unearthed animals in the areas the caribou dug up. The fox benefits from another animal's work, however the caribou is unaffected, as it does not benefit nor harm the caribou. The next interaction is predation, the preying of one animal on others. Some predators in the tundra are owls, foxes, wolves, and polar bears. These animals are at the top of the food chain and prey on animals such as caribou, lemmings, and hares. One predator-prey example is between the Arctic fox and the vole. Arctic foxes normally eat small mammals such as the vole. They also eat lemmings, birds, and birds' eggs. Another predator-prey connection would be the snowy owl and several different small animals. Some small mammals like mice, voles, lemmings, and even rabbits are prey for the snowy owl. The snowy owl also eats birds and waterfowl, such as grouse and ducks. They also eat any small animals, even fish. An example of competition in the tundra would be the musk ox versus the caribou. These two animals have similar diets and often fight for food. Another example would be the polar bear versus the Arctic fox. The two desire the same climate and place of living, therefore they fight each other for territory. The first pattern of dispersion is uniform. In the tundra, the Arctic tern demonstrates uniform dispersion as the individual birds are evenly spaced out. An example of random dispersion in the tundra would be Arctic wildflowers. The wind distributes their seeds, spacing the flowers randomly. The last pattern of dispersion is clumped. An example of clump dispersion in the tundra is the lichen. Lichen grow in clusters around nutrients and other favorable conditions in the environment. For our survivorship curve, we chose the polar bear. The survivorship curve is a graph showing the number or proportion of individuals surviving to each age for a given species or group. The polar bear population is represented by a type 1 survivorship curve. Type 1 or convex curves are characterized by high age-specific survival probability in early and middle life, followed by a rapid decline in survival in later life. The graph shows that polar bears start dying at very old ages, and since they are the dominating species in the Arctic, they are not subjected to deaths due to other animals. They usually die due to starvation, old age, and fights with other polar bears. This is a traditional curve that may fluctuate. Moving on to biogeochemical cycles, we have the carbon cycle. The tundra is an area where carbon dioxide is taken in by plants in the summer, and the carbon builds up. In the winter, the plants die and the carbon is trapped and stored under permafrost and then further removed from the atmosphere. Recently, global warming has been melting the permafrost, and as it melts, the plants decompose and release CO2 into the atmosphere. In summary, carbon is transferred by the atmosphere, then the shrubbery found in the tundra uses the carbon for photosynthesis, and afterwards the carbon goes through the food chain. As seen in this photo, the carbon cycle has effect on global warming in the tundra. Global warming causes permafrost to melt and release trapped carbon. The carbon that is released further increases global warming. Next is the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen fixation converts nitrogen into forms that are useful for the plants. An example would be when ammonia is converted to nitric oxide and the roots of plants absorb the nitride. Bacteria and other decomposers then convert the nitrate into ammonia. The ammonium is changed back into nitric oxide, which was released into the air. The next biogeochemical cycle for the tundra is the hydrogen cycle. Starting with evaporation, the warmth from the sun causes water from oceans, lakes, streams, ice, and soil to rise into air and turn water into water vapor. The water vapor in the air then cools down and turns back into liquid water. Water in the form of either rain, snow, hail, or sleet falls from the clouds. And finally, collection takes place where the water that fell from the clouds infiltrates into the ground and will be collected as underground water. The last biogeochemical cycle is the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus travels through the tundra biome just like energy. Phosphate is added through fertilizer, then taken up by plants through their roots, where it is then eaten by animals and dropped back into the biome through animal waste. The animal waste then breaks down into organic phosphate or runs off into a body of water. Once broken down, it's transformed to inorganic phosphate for the plant to take up, and the process begins again. Phosphate helps the animals regulate the pH levels of their blood, so without the phosphate, the animals would die. The way phosphate cycles through the tundra versus the way energy cycles through the tundra are different because when energy flows through the cycle, it is lost and gained again and again by the animals using the energy. With phosphate, a matter, it never gets lost or gained because animals don't use the matter like they do energy. Moving on to human disturbance. 1/3 of the world's soil-bound carbon is in the tundra's permafrost. As the weather heats up, the frozen soil of the tundra begins to thaw and consequently, its organic contents begin to decay. This releases carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas that contributes to the depletion of the ozone layer. The melting of the permafrost as a result of global warming could radically change the landscape and what species are able to live there. Since global warming has caused warm weather in the tundra to melt the ice, polar bear and any other tundra animal's environment has been limited. Not only is global warming causing the ice to melt, but hunting is endangering tundra species, and oil drilling is polluting the water. Overdevelopment for tourists has harmed the plants around it as well. Furthermore, human disturbance in the tundra is seen through UV radiation. Strong UVA and UVB radiation has occurred in Antarctica because of the serious destruction of stratospheric ozone. Excessive UVB exposure inhibits the growth processes of almost all green plants in the tundra. To close up our presentation on the biome, here are additional effects of global warming on the tundra. When the weather gets warmer and warmer, the permafrost melts, allowing trees and shrubs to grow that wouldn't previously been able to. The growth of such new plant life alters the landscape of the land and the habitat of the animals native to the tundra. However, global warming has significantly increased winter temperatures and snow and ice coverage has shrunk. There has been unprecedented mass melting and glaciers are in retreat throughout the tundra. Global warming has led to glacier melting, which leads to a loss in animal habitats. Tree lines have changed their positions and locations considerably. However, Arctic plants are better able to adapt to a warming world, and wide dispersal of seeds could ensure survival. That is it for our presentation on the tundra biome. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed it.